Hello, I'm Maciej, Mikos, and you're watching World Talks. The European Commission has approved the construction of the first Polish nuclear power plant. The investment is worth more than 40 billion euros, and the facility will produce energy starting from 2036. And to talk about it, we're joined by Professor Wacław Gudowski, nuclear physicist at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm. Good evening.
Good evening, but also at the National Center of Nuclear Research in Poland.
Which is crucial here. Now, before we start our discussion, I'd like us to listen to the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk announcing the big news today.
The European Commission has approved public funding for the construction of a nuclear power plant in Poland. This may sound a bit technical, but the bottom line is that Poland can move forward with the construction process starting this year, in December. We've secured the funds. As you know, we're talking about 14 billion euro in total. Already in December, that is still this year, the initial billion euro in Treasury securities, which we've secured together with the Minister of Finance, will be dispersed to relevant entities. This means that the construction will start. And as you can imagine, this was an absolutely necessary hurdle and not at all easy to clear. I'm talking about obtaining all the necessary permits. We're doing our jobs rather than just talking about it. And we will indeed be able to start this construction with enough momentum to ensure that the electricity from Poland's first nuclear power plant starts flowing as soon as possible.
So, Prime Minister Tusk would like to see the energy flowing from Poland's first nuclear power plant as soon as possible. But according to plans, the whole process will take more than 10 years to complete. Now, why is it taking so long? And the other question here is whether it's an optimistic or a rather conservative timeline. What's your professional opinion?
Well, first, a small correction to the statement you just made. And the European Commission did not approve the Polish nuclear project. They approved the public funds going to this project. And this is not the European money, by the way, but this is our own money. But it comes from the public domain. So that is why we need, following today's regulation in Europe, to have the
but now we're
European
officially able
Commission.
to start the construction. That's the bottom
Well, we can start to pour public money there. So that's very good. If this is why it has to take so long time. For the first, we lost already about 15 years, talking, because the first plan were actually announced already 2010, not talking about the first nuclear plants in Żarnowiec, which were done almost 40 years ago. China, which is building, like 10 reactors a year, they can build in 5 years. But we are a newcomer country. We are embarking country, it's called. So I think we have to go through the very painful first reactor in Poland. But I think we could speed up this process very much, doing a lot of things parallelly. The atomic law is constructed very much sequential. You have to wait in one step to do another step. I think that this law can be changed, can be adopted, and we should look at Sweden, which is actually adopting the, what they call also the atomic law, to the current technology. So not necessarily everything goes sequential, things can go parallelly, and a lot of things can be done simpler. So I believe that we need very much simplification of the law without compromising the safety, very important thing. But I have also very bad news for you, that even these 3 reactors on time and on budget will not solve our energy needs problem, because we will have in about the year 2035, 2040, the gap in the disponible power in the electrical grid coming to the 15 gigawatts. So this 4 gigawatts is a very small portion of the solution. We need, for the first, decide very fast about the second nuclear power, and then put a lot of efforts to the SMR, small modular reactor deployment, which can be a very good complement to the what we call the big atom.
So how many nuclear power Professor, so how many nuclear power plants would we need to build by 2040 to be to provide Poland with with the energy security very much needed in nowadays international environment?
The mathematics is very simple. We need about 15 gigawatt so-called base load, which can only be ensured with the nuclear power with emission-free generation of energy. So 15 gigawatts, it's about 10, 11 big reactors, or maybe 25, 30 small reactors, or combination of that. So my ideal mix would be about 6 big reactors in Poland by year 2040 and about 20 small modular reactors distributed in Poland where the grid is ready for that.
Does it sound realistic? I mean, when you listen to your own words,
Well,
like 6 nuclear power plants by 2040?
I can tell you, instead of looking to the crystal ball, let's look to the history of other countries. Sweden, a very small country in 1964, 8 million people, they decided to build 12 reactors. The first reactor was ready in 1971, and the last 12 reactor was actually ready to be connected to the grid 1985. 12 reactors in 14 years. What's a big problem? And the Sweden was 4 times less than Poland today. So let's multiply this 12 by the population, and we have the project which is relatively comparable. You know, France did the same. From 1973, they actually constructed and deployed 50 reactors in 25 years. In average, 2 reactors a day, a year. France, a double size of Poland in population. So you know, if you refer to the power of the people, to the population, you can see that this is not that difficult problem. It has been done already.
But
and, there were no computers.
But usually the construction of nuclear power plants is met with protests, and I'm wondering, whether they have valid grounds, these protests. Now, how likely is it that such a scenario as it happened in Chernobyl or Fukushima would also happen in Poland?
But I can tell you, Chernobyl is impossible because Chernobyl was a very different technology which was using actually combination of graphite and water in the reactor core. Don't forget, Fukushima, it was actually the country with the big tsunami threats. And if you go, to any Japanese museum, you can see the paintings, when the tsunami is higher than the palm trees. And suddenly they decided that the maximum size of the tsunami would be only 5 meters. And they built it accordingly to the totally wrong assumption. So I don't know. I mean, if you go to Japan, you see, that from ages, tsunami was higher than the palm trees on the. So yes, we can easily build with today's technology nuclear power, which has close to zero risk for any significant accident. And in general, reactors built now, they are built in such a way that no evacuation is foreseen behind the fence in the worst case scenario. No evacuation behind the fence of the nuclear power station.
I see.
And
now,
we have fantastic performance worldwide.
There's another problem, though. I mean, the nuclear waste. Does Poland have any clear idea what to do with it?
Nuclear waste is very much overreacted problem. Sweden is already constructing the underground repository. Finland is constructing underground repository. Don't forget that nuclear waste, they has very small volume compared to any other energy generation. So in a way, you can store what we call used nuclear fuel or high-level waste, if you prefer that, in the volume which corresponds to maybe 3 or 4 subway metro stations. Cannot we find the place for 5 metro stations in Poland? We can easily follow the examples of Sweden, Finland, also Switzerland is doing similarly, geological repository. But as a scientist, I tell you that what we call today the used fuel or high-level waste, it has about 20 more energy to be extracted than it generated in the reactor. But we have to develop new generation of the reactors which can actually convert the uranium-238, which is not a fuel for the current reactors, but can be a fuel for the next generation, so-called breeding reactors or breeder reactors. I want to put attention, you have a very good motto for this talk. Every word matters. I would say in our energy policy, every watt matters.
I see. Professor, one thing, as you have mentioned, is nuclear waste. The other thing is nuclear fuel, right? To make this nuclear plant operational. Where we will get it from?
There are nuclear uranium, which is the original nuclear fuel, is well distributed over different political systems, over different continents. So actually, in 70 years of functioning nuclear power in many countries, there were never a problem with the nuclear fuel, because you can buy it from the friendly country, you can buy it from the hostile country, you can buy it, from your neighbors. And finally, we have also significant resources of uranium if we would be forced to exploit it. Today, it's still cheaper to buy it somewhere else. There is a lot of uranium in Canada, Australia, Kazakhstan is the biggest, Namibia, then Russia, if one wants to buy from Russia. But you are definitely not dependent on any single country or on any single pipe. And I can tell you that many nuclear power countries, they are buying separately the raw uranium from one country, then they buy the so-called enrichment services in another country, and finally the final fuel, they also order to the different vendor if it is economically justified. So this market is really, I would say, very, very user-friendly compared to the gas market. With the gas and oil, we had crisis of 73, we have the dictatorship of OPEC countries. With the uranium, it's still a very, very democratic market.
So far, and let it stay so. Nuclear physicist Wacław Gudowski was our guest this evening. Professor, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And remember, every watt matters.
Thank you for watching, and stay with us for more interviews here on TVP World.